Angela, is worried about the financial year 25-26 because it states November 25. Angela, that's correct. It's not a mistake because that's the the suggested recommended start date of the project. So consider that grants will be awarded in October. So your project cannot start before November 2025. And then, yes, the financial year still ends in March 2026. So I hope that clarifies. And then before we move on to the most upvoted question, there is a point around unclear guidance on audited accounts. This can make a big difference to the grant amount applied. Can we submit signed financial records from the auditor? So you need audited accounts. I'm not sure what the unclarity is about. So maybe if you want to post another question there, it may help. But yeah, we need audited accounts. It's okay if you don't have accounts audited for 2024. Please include audited accounts for 2023, 2022, and 2021. Now moving from the top, how should lead organization incorporate partner organization costs in the provided budget template? So Billy, could you help with this one?
Yeah, sure. So in the provided budget template on the summary worksheet, you will need to name the different partners that you plan to work with during your project. And then on the budget spreadsheet itself, there is a column that allows you to identify which partner or the lead organization the cost is associated to. So for each cost that you budget line that you put in, please identify which partner that funding will be going to. And then on the summary page, that should pull the information of how much funding is going to each of your partners.
Thank you. The call prioritizes local solutions, which we attempt to center through a detailed discussion baseline working with project communities to identify what alternative livelihoods we have been particularly effective that can be further strengthened at analysis. As such, to what extent does Ocean expect to see considerable detail around specific interventions in the proposal itself, i.e., is Ocean happy to consider bottom-up approaches where specific livelihoods will only be finalized to ensure inception phase? So, to me, that's to you to judge and see and assess. Billy, yeah, I don't know if you want to add anything to this, but methodologies are for applicants to define.
Yeah, I think the only other point to kind of say on this is that I think what you're referring to here is okay in the sense that if you plan to work with the local community to identify the alternative livelihoods solutions, then I think you don't necessarily need to have all of the answers at this stage. But in terms of kind of developing your log frame and theory of change, we would still want you to be able to tell us a little bit about the anticipated impact at the end of the project and kind of how you're going to measure success and performance. So as long as you feel you can develop your log frame, your projected impact, and kind of plans for monitoring and evaluating the project, then I think it shouldn't be an issue.
Are all project expenses eligible for indirect cost rate recovery, or are there categories that are limited?
So I think on this, all budget lines must contain only direct project costs with no overheads built in. And there's an overhead other than within the overheads budget category. So any indirect kind of cost rate recovery should be detailed in the overhead budget category itself rather than built into different project expenses.
There's a question around total overheads versus staff ratio. is this only for ocean funding or for the full project budget, including match?
This is just for the ocean funding, not for the match funding.
Okay, I'm gonna skip the next one because I'll try to summarize it. Is it possible to have private funders for the reference letter or only public funders? Yeah, you can have private funders. Does Ocean Expert Committee accept reference letters from lead partner of publicly funded projects? Yes, so all the reference letters must relate to projects of the lead organization only. Does Ocean Expert Committee accept reference letters from key project stakeholders in addition to the project funders? No, they would be support letters. So we need proof of contracts that the lead organization has carried out. Can we get a bit more detail regarding the communication plan? How does it differ from visibility and what are the budgetary restrictions? If you could take that, Billy, I'll try to summarize the other question in the meantime.
Yeah, I think for the communication section, I'm just pulling the question up quickly so I can make sure to talk to this correctly. We just want to know really how you're planning to communicate about your project to wider audiences, because we're aware that people are often doing quite a lot of communication work, but we haven't previously asked for any information about this, and we would like to kind of encourage you to communicate about your project and to have a plan and kind of identify ways that you'll communicate like via different activities or channels. I think the question itself is over to you to decide how much you want to communicate, what you think is appropriate channels, and how you do this. And there aren't necessarily any budgetary restrictions on this, but it's more about, rather than visibility being kind of the awareness of the project and funding, it's more about communicating the results of your project and communicating about your project. Hopefully that helps a little bit.
Thank you, Billy. So the first question is around an applicant that's planning to have an inception phase and identify community site selection and also project partners in the inception phase, which would be after the award of the grant. So they're saying this means we will not have a former partner in place at the time of the bid, but instead have an informal local partner and methodology in place to identify and select that partner. Does this mean we wouldn't be non-compliant and have to drop the country in question? Or would DEFRA be open to such an iterative process? So you need to have the partner organization stated at the proposal stage. You cannot change these. So yeah, to me, you'd be non-compliant. Really not sure if you have any thoughts on that one. I think project partners need to be cleared and defined before they submit the proposal.
I think I would agree on this. I think we would maybe expect that you have identified that partner ahead of the project starting and as part of the application process. Yeah. If you want to follow up further, I mean, feel free to send a help desk email, and we can check this with DEFRA. But I think I would agree with Valentina, your conclusion on this.
And I think in general, DEFRA are not necessarily open to negotiations. So one of the questions I answered was about, do we need to accept the terms and conditions as they are, or are we going to negotiate them with DEFRA? So they are there, you're accepting them at time of submitting your proposal. So you'll need to comply with them. you won't be able to negotiate with DEFRA specific terms and conditions that are suitable to you. So if you're not happy with terms and conditions, please review them before applying, because you'll have to adhere to them. How is Ocean considering that the lead organization disperse the funds to the country partner organizations then? So Ocean pays all funds to the lead organization, then it's the responsibility of the lead organization to disperse the funds to the partner organizations. And you need to keep track of that, because you may be subject to an audit. So the funds that you put in the budget go into partner organizations, you need to disperse them. Can a lead applicant sign and submit the proposal but not be the signatory of the grant award? I think that would be okay, because you need to provide exact signatory of the grant award. So it's okay in terms of proposal.
But I think we would expect the signatory to be from the lead organisation still.
Yeah. Would Ocean be favourable towards including costs for an in-project country organisation whose primary role will be to help strengthen another local network capacity to implement activities during the project? I think that's for you to assess. There's nothing that prevents you from doing that. If an applicant proposes a program investment in processing equipment facilities, are there matching or leverage requirements from Ocean? No, I mean, match funding is not mandatory. It is encouraged, but we don't have specific percentages of match funding that we require. So I hope that helps based on the information you shared. Does the lead applicant have to be the person who's entitled to sign off the application? Or can we name a senior manager as lead applicant, as she will actually lead the project, and then our director will sign off? So that's for the lead organization to discuss internally. So you need to make sure that the lead applicant has internal authority to sign the application form. Is it mandatory to choose a headline indicator? For example, if we select headline indicator 3 and 3A, do they count as one indicator? Is it also mandatory to choose a sub-indicator when selecting a headline indicator?
I think this is referring to the standard indicators template. When selecting your standard indicators, we ask that you choose a minimum of 5 standard indicators, and that we would anticipate these to be selected from the sub standard indicators, so like 3A, 3B, and so on. But for each of the sub indicators that you identify, we would expect that you also report against the headline indicator, so indicator 3 as a total. But we would expect you to identify a minimum of 5 sub indicators, standard indicators.
Okay. So for reaching out to the British High Commission, I do not see a generic email I can use for Senegal and Mozambique. How can I find such emails? I think if you follow the steps we detail in section 9.14 of the complete guide for applicants, you should be able to find it. If you still cannot find it, please write to help desk, but you should be able to find it for those 2 countries. Can you expand more on accepted contractual arrangements between the lead organization and downstream partners? So the lead organization would be responsible for any due diligence and contracting of partner organizations. We do not provide any rules you need to follow. That's according to your policies. You as lead organization would be the sole responsible entity in the eyes of DEFRA. That's the funder. So your responsibility is on the lead organization. Is it possible to include staff that will be hired during the inception phase of the project and submit a profile for this position instead of a CV? Yes, this is quite a popular question. If you go to Annex D of the complete guide for applicants, you'll find all information around that, including suggestions of what to include in the CV and job description. We plan to collaborate with 9 small local CBOs, 8 of which have similar structures. To improve the readability and manageability of the budget file, we are considering consolidating their costs under a single partner line. Could you please confirm whether this approach is acceptable? I don't think it is, but I'm keen to hear from Billy. If it's separate legal entities, you need separate, you need to spell out each partner separately.
Yeah, I think it would be preferable to understand the breakdown to each of the different partners on the basis that I would imagine that they would have different activities and different costs. I think it is partly also though up to you, and we don't know the full context of your project. So if there is for a kind of reason for grouping them together that kind of makes sense, then I think it might be okay. But I think it would be better for you to separate them out.
Is there any issue if the project budget includes the working hours of the lead applicant? No, I mean, you're free to include in the budget what you think is reasonable to include.
Yeah.
Our project will be developed in a UMIC country. We're partnering with local NGOs, and as lead applicants, we're based in a UMIC country where the project will be developed. However, we're not partnering with government entities, but we are currently working with one of the ministries with the aim of enriching the project outcomes. Despite this, the ministry will not be an official partner, but rather a stakeholder. Is there an issue with this regarding the UMIC assessment criteria? I think this will be for the expert committee to consider.
Yeah, and I think it's for yourself to review the UMIC assessment criteria and check that you're meeting what is detailed in there. I don't think it will necessarily be an issue, but I would just review the criteria again and make sure that that you are meeting the points. I think the fact of whether you partner or kind of engage with them as a stakeholder may not be too much of an issue, but please take a look back at the criteria itself, I think, and kind of take steer from there.
Yeah. In a priority scale, the JETSI approach would be more relevant than the biodiversity recovery approach. Not necessarily, in my view. So all applications are going to be assessed against the scoring criteria that you have in section 11. So those are the criteria all applications will be scored against if eligible. Apart from the indicator template, are we also encouraged to use the standard indicators in the log frame? Or can we use our own indicators in the log frame?
For this, we would want you to use your own indicators in the log frame. This is why we've tried to keep it separate, because we want your log frame to be owned and developed and designed by you as the lead applicants and kind of designers of your project. We don't want to be prescriptive about what should go in your log frame. That's why we want to keep standard indicators separate to allow us to understand kind of overall the impact, but for you to take ownership and design your log frame that's most appropriate in the most appropriate way for managing and monitoring and evaluating your project.
Thank you, Billy. And a similar question, what can we do if the indicators we have in our log frame are very similar or the same as those proposed by Ocean?
I think that's okay. It would just mean that you are tracking a very similar indicator across the standard indicators template and your log frame. So it's not an issue if they're the same or very similar. But we do just ask that you keep them in the separate documents because there's different purposes for the different documents. The standard indicators will support our understanding of the impact, and the log frame will be more for monitoring and evaluating your project.
Thank you. How should we provide the funds to our partners? It's usually a bank transfer. What is a good percentage of the grant to invest into equipment? So if you look at the finance guidance, there are caps for capital costs and overhead. So you should make sure you stay within the percentage caps, which obviously vary based on your budget request. Does DEFRA have procurement rules we should use, or do we use our own organization's procurement rules when it comes to hiring consultants? I think you're free to use your procurement rules. Does DEFRA have additional guidance on MPAC? I'm not sure what you'd need that for at this stage, and I don't think they provide any guidance on that.
We don't have any additional guidance for MPAC, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's usually MPAC is usually linked to profit, so the guidance is that you cannot use Ocean grants to make a profit. So just be careful around that. Is there any issue if the project budget includes the paid working hours of the lead applicant rather than considering it as an in-kind contribution? Yeah, that's up to you to decide if you want to provide the time of the lead applicant as in-kind or make it a sort of billable item under the budget. To what extent does this need to be a new project? For example, is there an existing pilot and government support for building out the program? Would it be acceptable to request funding for the build out? Is there a requirement to have an exit strategy for continued funding? So always a good idea to make sure your project is sustainable. So if that includes an exit strategy, yes, that would be welcomed. In terms of the new project, I think we have some guidance in the complete guide for applicants, but yeah, Billy, maybe if you...
Yeah, I mean, I think also look at the scoring criteria, but I think what you've referenced here as an example would be acceptable as a request for a project, given that a pilot might have been conducted to understand if the approach is viable or if a certain innovation will work in this context, and then the plan is to scale and kind of build on that. I think that would be okay. So I think in this specific example, it seems acceptable, but without full context, we can't really comment on your specific project. I hope that helps.
Should any cost designated for partner organization activities be clearly marked as such in budget? Yes. Are reference letters allowed from private individual donors? Yes. We have a thing that's diversity, equal opportunities policy that fulfills both equal opportunity diversity policy and JEDC policy. Are we allowed to use the same policy for both? Yes, I'd request and recommend that you also attach a cover letter and explain why you're using the same policy to fulfill two different requirements. So have a cover letter for the JEDC policy and upload the policy you have. Have a cover letter for the equal opportunities policy and upload the policy you have. we need to be clear, because otherwise when we run eligibility checks, we'll have doubts and do not understand why you have attached the same policy multiple times. So my suggestion is to draft and attach a cover letter and make it very clear for us when we run the checks. The next message from Gabriel is in Spanish. I think they're talking about their project and that benefits 360 families, and say they do not have the financial capacity to carry out the project. What can we do? I'd recommend you don't lead the project, but find a lead organization you can partner with. In what extent should we provide background information regarding the direct and indirect beneficiaries? For example, the exact number of people that will benefit from the project.
It would be good to include this information where possible so that we can understand how many people are anticipated to benefit from the project. Where you can try and be as accurate as possible, then great. I think that will only support. Yeah.
Now, what about working with a private company and a university as partners for the project? That's possible. It's up to you to decide. Could we include reference letters from accredited JEF agencies, for example, UN agencies or large INGOs that are accredited and with whom we work with? As long as you have received funding from them, yes, please attach a reference letter. It should relate to the last 5 years. In Ocean's guidance, I see multidimensional poverty reduction can be addressed directly, indirectly through practice-oriented research. Is it okay if we address it only indirectly? I think so.
That's okay. We expect that certain types of projects may only impact multidimensional poverty indirectly, but do try and make sure to be clear at how you plan to benefit it indirectly.
Next one is for the risk register template. Need to complete the tabs risk register and delivery chain risk map, not the issues register. Yes, that is correct. If we don't include the ocean indicators in some shape or form in a log frame, it means we can't really monitor them. So it seems essential to integrate these indicators in a log frame.
I think on this one, we don't want to ask people to have to include the standard indicators in their log frame, because we want your log frame to be as specific to your project as possible. The log frame isn't the most detailed version of a log frame that can be out there, so it might be that you have a need for an additional MEL plan to track which indicators need to be monitored and kind of reported against. If you feel it's essential to integrate these into your log frame, then that is okay. There'll be no kind of no issue integrating them, but we wouldn't want it to be at a detriment to more specific indicators that your project log frame could use.
For the standard indicators, at least 5 need to be selected. Do sub-indicators also count towards this, or do at least 5 head indicators be selected?
So on this one, it's the 5 sub-indicators that you need to account for. So yeah, the sub-indicators all count towards the 5. And then where you've selected sub-indicators, we do ask that you also report against the head standard indicators as well for those categories. But you don't need to select at least 5 of the head standard indicators. And on the second point, I think there should be some standard indicator guidance available on our website. and on FlexiGrant, but I will need to just double check if that's available or not.
Yeah,
Yeah,
maybe we can post the link in the chat, Billy.
Yeah, let me pop the link on. There's some standard indicator guidance that hopefully should help review kind of further information on this.
The meanwhile, may we include more than 3 project references? No, please don't. And in general, please do not attach extra materials from what we request. Just make it more complicated to assess your eligibility. So some applicants attach 5 different registration certificates. That's not necessary and it confuses things. Just attach one if possible. Make sure it's clear. Include an unofficial translation in English, but don't submit all you have because it doesn't necessarily play to your advantage and help, because it makes it more difficult to understand what you have provided and what you have not provided. So if we request 3 references, please attach only 3 references. If we are applying as an international NGO with the local offices and partnering with local organizations, do we still have to provide commitment letters of our local offices at partners? Yes. So you need a letter of support from each partner organization. Doesn't matter if they are affiliated with you or not. Okay, some problems with contacting the embassy. It's okay. I mean, if you follow the steps of the contact us page and take snapshots and can prove that you have contacted the embassy, you've done your best to do so, that will be acceptable. But please, if you haven't contacted the British Embassy, please do so this week, because the application deadline is less than 2 weeks away and you should have contacted them a long time ago. So really this week, please contact them. If you haven't done so already, you are running late. We will accept it, but please don't contact them the day before. It wouldn't be acceptable. We are a business with mixed funds from government and private sector. Are we still able to apply? Yes, if you meet all eligibility requirements, what you're saying is acceptable. For us, the only way to work with our partners is to have grant agreements with them so we can provide the funds to them. Is this okay? Yes, as long as you disperse the funds to the partners, it's okay how you want to manage that. And yeah, we would expect some sort of contract to be in place between you and the partners. I was going to submit in 2024 a partnership grant application and I got endorsement letters. I ended up not submitting because of some information missing. Can I use those letters? The project remains with the same name and the endorsers are the same. Yes, that would be fine. If you had any more recent letters, that would be also fine and acceptable and preferable. But yeah, you can use the letters from last year. How should we show funding that we are applying for from multiple governments? In kind or match contribution?
I don't think these would be in-kind contributions, but maybe match contributions. And in the budget itself, you can indicate whether the match funding is secured or not. But I think, and if you're applying for match funding and it's not yet been secured, then you can identify as not secured. There is a question in the application form to ask you to provide a bit of justification of how you'll run the project if it isn't secured. And I think just to note that large amounts of unsecured match funding probably are seen as quite a risky approach from the expert committee. So I would try and make sure that you've got very clear justification if you do have large amounts of unsecured match funding.
Yeah. Partners need to be as well from at least a middle income country. No, partners need to be in the project country. So you must have at least one partner in each primary country of your project. Are the project and financial management going to be audited at any point? Yes, you can always be subject to an audit. Baseline study, can this be done as part of the inception phase, or is there an expectation that this will be completed before the project starts?
I think we would expect this probably to be completed at the inception of the project. We don't expect all baseline info data to be collected ahead of the implementation of the project. If you have it, great, but I think it can also be part of the initial kind of activities for the inception phase.
Yeah, you could have an indication at proposal stage, also to provide greater background to the project and why it's needed.
Yeah.
Is there any issue if the project budget includes the paid working hours of the lead applicant rather than considering it as an in-kind contribution? So I think we answered this one already. It's up to you to decide how to cover for the lead applicant time. It could be a cost on the budget, it could be in-kind contribution. Is it possible to do an RFP and provide grants to other organizational groups? No, you cannot use ocean funds to give out grants to individuals or other organizations. It is not allowed. Can one organization send two applications as lead organization? Yes. There's no limit to the number of applications you can submit, but this will be considered by DEFRA. So go by quality and not quantity. Is it waste management eligible in coastal areas that will benefit both the community and the environment? Yes, waste management is eligible. Depends how you describe it, but in general, yes. Any chance that this program will be cancelled or funding reduced because of the cuts to UK ODA?
I think, as said kind of at the start, and sorry if you missed this slide, Carmen, but we don't really have any further information that we can share at the moment, but appreciate and understand that partners will have questions about this and what this means for future collaboration on Ocean. We intend to share any updates via the Ocean website and our social media channels over the coming weeks once we hear information on this. So I think please check back. Unfortunately, we have no other information at the moment that we can share.
Okay. Reference letter. If we're about to sign a contract with an organization we already work with for a similar amount to the one requested under Ocean, but previous amounts from past contracts were smaller, is that a problem? No, I mean, up to you to submit the reference letters that you think best describe your work and your ability to manage a contract. It's understandable, that in the past you were awarded a smaller amount and in the future a bigger amount, but submit what you think is best. Our organization has social safeguard system in place. Where should we include this in the required MEL document? Should it be in the log frame, work plan, or another section? I think there is a section on safeguarding.
Yeah, there is a section on safeguarding that you can detail the system and processes that you have in place and how you intend to protect people, stakeholders involved in your project. I'm not sure on the other areas, so I think that's up for you to decide and to determine whether you should be including that in any of the other information.
Do we need a reference letter if applying for a partnership grant? Yes, you need 3. Can you partner with more than one local organization? Yes. Does it have to be the same project for all the local organizations involved? I'm not sure I understand it. So you need at least one partner organization in each primary project country. You can have more than one partner organization,
Yeah.
or within the same project. Does the lead organization have to actively participate in the activities, or could it be just a financial recipient?
I think we would expect the lead organization to have a management role in the project because the lead organization would be anticipated to be the organization that complies with the terms and conditions. And a result of complying with the terms and conditions, there would be different expectations in terms of the management of the grant. I think it's worth having a look and a read through the terms and conditions document to make sure that you feel like your lead organization can comply with these. But there isn't anything that says the level of management role that the lead organization needs to have. So I think you would need to, or kind of the level of like participation in activity. So I think it's maybe down to you to have a look at what terms and conditions would expect of you.
If we're planning to work in 2 or more countries, should we get in contact with the embassies in all the countries? Yes. So contact the embassies in each primary country you're planning to work in. Next applicant is telling us is income for 3 years. And asking if the organization can apply. So there's no income requirement for the lead organization or partnership grants. The only requirement is that in each financial year, you do not seek more than 25% of your average income. The next one is about standard indicators, I think. 1A.
Can we come back to this question? I'm just
Sure.
going to have a look into this one a bit further.
Yeah. Can you confirm that for the risk register, applicants need to complete only risk register and delivery chain, but not the issue register? Yes, that is written in the template itself, guidance page. But yes, it's only those two. Issues register you will need if you're awarded a grant. If we're submitting the same project as last year and we reference and adjust based on feedback, how different does the application need to be? Well, you need to definitely improve it based on feedback provided and respond to the feedback provided and demonstrate how you have addressed it. To triple check, the minimum of 5 standard indicators required. This means 5 sub-indicators required.
Yes,
It is
that's
not
correct.
exactly.
Yeah, 5 substandard indicators required. Yes.
Also regarding the indicators, can you select only a headline indicator, even if the category has sub-indicators?
Let me just clarify this one as well, but just quickly on the one above from Daniel, for standard indicator 1A, area under sustainable management practices, if we interpret this as an improvement in waste management practices and recycling rates to improve leakage rates, is that a permissible interpretation? And Nicola, who is our MEL advisor, has confirmed that yes, that would be permissible.
Okay. We will work with women-led groups and will support their ventures. Can we provide grants to them? No, once again, you cannot use Ocean funds to give out grants to individuals or organizations.
Just on the one above regarding the indicators, sorry, let me just double check. So you must select a sub indicator if you want to communicate, if you want to report against the headline indicator. So you should not only have a headline indicator, you should always have a sub-indicator underneath the headline.
Great. We are not sure the name of the groups and the amount. I don't understand this question. Sorry, maybe it refers to another question. So if you want to clarify. Based on the previously funded project, looks like they are largely multi-country. Is this a preference in this grant call? No, it's never been a preference. And I think we awarded grants to projects implemented only in one country. So just be mindful of time. We have 4 minutes left. And I think just a final question came up, but if we're targeting a project that involves several countries working together simultaneously, is it acceptable if some of the countries are not eligible? No, all countries need to be eligible. And then again on sub-grants, so you cannot use, if you're awarded a grant, you'll receive ocean funds. You cannot use those funds to give grants to individuals or organizations. You can contract people, for example, to do a specific study or provide a specific competence that you don't have within the lead organization and the partner organizations. But you cannot give mini grants to others. You cannot do a loan. You cannot borrow money. You cannot give seed funding to women groups, for example. So that's what we mean. Billy, if you want to add, please.
No, just going to say someone put in the Q&A unless they are partners, right? And I think that's it. If they are named partners in the project application form and in the budget, then yes, you can provide a disbursement of funds to those partners via a partnership agreement or a contract or whatever agreement you have in place to work with your partners.